Welcome to the 42nd edition of airhacks TV. It's going to be the answer to all questions, but it's not going to be the last show. First, I'm really grateful that actually all workshops are well booked, and the web standard is also very popular. So this is really welcome. And React and Angular is a little bit less popular than React, which is even better. And also the December workshops are also well booked. I'm thinking about also to offer a testing workshop, but yeah, I'm not sure yet. Okay, now start with the contents. So we have lots of questions or topics for today. And the first question arrived via Twitter. I'm not sure whether it is a question rather than a statement. And it says, app server model is ultimate if class loader leaks are addressed gracefully on app redeployments. Yeah, and this is the main problem with redeployments, because on each redeploy, the war has to be unloaded and loaded again. And of course, what can happen is that because of class loader leaks, it is not fully unloaded, and then is the problem where you get strange behavior of the application servers. And I'm not counting on it anymore. And this is not only application server specific. We had similar issues with OSGI and all other module system attempts. So the ultimate model, I would say, is running an application server in a single process. And then you can have multiple microservices, multi-processes. Why it's the ultimate model? Yeah, because the application servers are very lightweight, so they have a minimal footprint. So it really doesn't matter whether you start one application server or 10. Okay, so now the very first question is from Niksha, and is asking me, is it planned to support Forkjoin in EE8? And the answer is, what probably Niksha means is whether the threads are well integrated in EE8. And I don't think so. I actually didn't have the time to look it up, but I don't know any movement in the concurrency utilities spec. I had a chat a few years ago with the spec lead, what should be the content of EE8, but since then I lost the connection. And but what I thought to do is actually, it's fairly easy to integrate Forkjoin framework with EE7 even, because what you will have to do is you will have to replace the thread factory with the EE thread factory, and what you will gain is you will gain that the threads used by Forkjoin are these threads from the application server. But thinking about this, I think recently, the application server became smaller and smaller, and this is not a recent, actually, it's nothing new. It is for years, but now it becomes, more obvious that they are very, very lean and have almost no footprint. So what happens now is we have deployment like one-to-one deployment. So we have one process, one application server, and one microservice or one war. So if you consider that, then you could actually say, who cares about that? So even if the Forkjoin framework is misconfigured and it will start lots of threads, it will only affect a single microservice, not multiples. So most of the programming restrictions in Java EE were specified because of the isolation. So the idea was that one noisy app should not affect the neighbor app, which is deployed on the same application server. But right now, the shared deployment model is dead for years. And so I would even say, even without a nice integration with Forkjoin framework, you could even use it if you know what you are doing. Then there's a JPro, and JPro is an interesting framework. It allows you to use JavaFX in the browser, and it won the Duke Awards in 2016 at the Java One. And what it does is it allows you to run JavaFX applications directly in the browser, which is a huge achievement. So the question is, what is my opinion about that? So first, still, Java is paramount, I would say, to JavaScript. And why that? Because the longer you wait, the longer JavaScript looks like Java. So and TypeScript, it's even better with TypeScript. You get features like interfaces, and this is very, very similar to Java. Of course, JavaScript is a dynamic language and Java is not. But the recent features like ES6, and you will get catches and try catch. So it is almost like Java. So it become less and less important that Java should run in a browser, because JavaScript is almost like Java. I have no trouble in understanding JavaScript code. It's not like these strange nested functions and modules. It looks like we have classes, extends, constructors, so it's almost like Java. It's easy to learn. So I would say right now, if I'm in the browser, I would just use the platform. So just use the standards with no additional frameworks, no Angular, no React, just the browser platform. And you can build a decent apps, and even better. So I implemented a framework called Afterburner FX a few years ago, which is quite popular. And with vanilla JavaScript, you can achieve similar architecture without any additional frameworks, of course, without dependency injection. But you actually don't need dependency injection in the front end. Afterburner only uses dependency injection because it was because of the fact that you could use the scene builder. There was a scene builder. You can create UI from like a drag and drop, and you could inject the generated UI widgets into your controllers. So this was the whole deal. And in JavaScript, you hopefully not creating the UI with drag and drop tools, or what you see is what you get tools. And of course, I'm working on an online course about this, just what you can achieve with plain standards. And today I recorded one video. So I've already 31 videos within the course, but it's not done yet. I assume it will be the longest course ever. I think we get about, I would say 50 topics or 50 videos. Okay, so Alhambra, and I think Monsieur Alhambra already attended the testing workshop in Munich. And what's funny is he suggested to offer performance monitoring workshop, and back then I'd say probably is not interesting enough, but I get more and more questions. So actually, this is one of the Monsieur Alhambra was the one of the first attendees who asked about performance and troubleshooting and monitoring workshop, and now we have it, right? And his question is. Do you know some way to get code coverage from a system test? Of course, and I already recorded this. So what I did here, I started an application server with system test coverage, and started, I think, even a system test. And then I tried to find out what was covered and what not. So what I did here, I misused the system test and the coverage to identify that code, but it does not matter. This is the same. It's the same mechanism. And what I did in this video is I used a Java agent, the Jacoco agent, and I started the application server with the agents, performed the system tests, killed the application server, and pointed NetBeans to jacoco.exec. I think is the name of the file, and then I saw the code coverage. So you can absolutely do this. Okay, covered. So let's see what happens in the chat. Nothing. And in the Twitter, even worse, silence. Very good. Fast, next question. And the next question should be the very first question, so I forgot about that. The 42. We have the 42nd edition of the show. And what is the answer to all questions? And if you follow all the airhacks and my blog and some conferences, I mean, the answer in software development, my answer to all the questions is usually, or a high-level answer to all questions is, use the platform or follow the standards. So what I mean specifically by that is, I started development with basic on ZX Spectrum, so it was fun. Then I started Turbo Pascal, and I already saw, okay, Turbo Pascal is nice, but I don't think it will win. And then I started C++, with C++, because I thought, okay, now C and C++ is just very popular, and C++ is the future because of object orientation. Then was Java on the horizon. So, okay, Java is a bigger deal. So I switched to Java. and Java became more and more popular. And since then, I just try to focus on standards, which usually means popular frameworks, so, frameworks with big community behind and multiple vendors behind. So why that? Because I was, or not I, my customers were burned multiple times by vendor migration from one platform to another, and of course, because one vendor, died or was no more supported, and we have to migrate the code because one framework was no more supported. But if you have a standard which is implemented by multiple vendors, then the chances that you will have to migrate something are negligible. And this is why I stick with Java EE for years. And clients which I suggested 10 years ago to use Java EE, they are still grateful. We say, look, we don't have to migrate anything. It still works. What they, of course, have to do is, to remove crazy layers and indirection. But you know already about this. And the same is true. What I do a lot right now is I'm using just the web platform. So I'm using just the standard implemented in browsers without any additional frameworks, with the same idea behind. It's just I'm too lazy to migrate, from Angular 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, or from Angular to React back and forth. I would like to learn something once and use it, or learn it deeper and then use it properly. And now we have the chance to use the same with JavaScript, CSS3 and CSS3 and HTML5. So and there are multiple such small things. Like I started Java, there was the applications were sometimes even built with make, and then Ant was on the horizon. So and it gained more and more popularity because it was an Apache project. So I switched everything to Ant. And then if you will even find an old post like I preferred Ant over Maven. Maven was hyped, but was not that adopted by the community. So, but then Maven won, and then I swapped to Maven. But the question is, should I use Gradle? It's a little bit nicer, but I still think that Maven is more popular. Therefore, I stick with Maven. So, and I'm a consultant. I have to work with multiple clients. So, this is for me mission impossible, to learn, let's say, Gradle, Maven, Make, Ant, and all the building frameworks just for fun. I would rather focus on the standard and then and learn once and apply everywhere. So this is actually the answer to all questions. So if you would like to stop watching the show, you can do this. But now you have now the answer to everything, and now start with the more specific questions. So Wesley asked me, what do you think about moving Java EE to an open source foundation? And it was caused the discussion by a thread from Monsieur Delabassi. Here is it. Okay. From David. And what he said is they are thinking about moving Java EE to open source, or even open. And right now, because right now it is behind JCP, and there are some issues with TCK. And what was also became evident last Java 1 to me is if a spec is no more developed, there was actually no formal way to take over the spec, which is annoying. And this is what really bugs me. That should be a process. So if a spec is like, let's say, the spec lead changed, switched companies, or have no interest to further develop the spec, there should be a voting process, to vote for another spec lead. And this is, I think, the most important thing. And of course, if everything is open source, is even better. And I mean, this is even better right now, because it will encourage to build an even more stable or even more popular standards, is what I talked about before. And so I think it's great, and it's a great move from Oracle. And I see it as a positive way, because Oracle changed a little bit, become to the positive, in the positive direction. They started the how it's called, Java Code Conference, which was free for developers, developer-oriented conference. I think Oracle recognized that without developers they will be never successful. So they can do, you know, just doing business without community, it won't work. And I think therefore it is very popular. It's not like, you know, they try to kill Java EE just to removing resources from that. I think they see the value in that. And yeah, I would be more concerned, let's say, at J2EE 1.4 timeframe, because then there was, you know, the huge revolution towards Java EE 5, where everything was completely refactored. But right now it's not like Java EE 8 is complete rewrite of Java EE 7. I think like right now a community can really contribute features to Java EE 8 without a large effort. Back then I think it would not be possible. So I'm very positive on this. Let's see what gets announced at Java 1. So my 2 talks are announced. They were already accepted at Java 1. So I will talk at Java 1 twice. I booked a flight, and this year I will spend, I think, 4 days at Java 1. So it's like the full Java 1. I will be in San Francisco, not like 1 day last year. So if you see me, just now say hello and have a chat. So I will really appreciate that. Okay, nice. So this is interesting. So this is the question is about auto discovery features of jax-rs resources, and this is actually what I always not reject, but I see it as a defect in code reviews where developers, without any reason, list all the resources in get classes in a subclass of the resource application. I ask why you're doing this, and there's actually no answer. So it's like without any reasons, all the resources are listed. So if you're deploying the resources to application server within the war, the application server will identify all the resources and will find them. And and the question is, what he asked now, he would like to have the same behavior in undertow, REST easy undertow in jax-rs alone. And I get that, but what he's actually doing in one point of time, so which only thing is lacking is CDI here. And then he will re-implement the whole application server, right? Because I mean, scanning, this is what the application server already does. And what I will do at least, take a look at Whitefly Swarm, for instance. So there's undertow is already integrated. And REST easy is the jax. This is actually strange because jax-rs and REST easy is the same. So REST easy implement jax-rs. I think what he means is REST easy undertow and probably CDI. So what IAM DVR will need is he will need a hook to find all the resources, and there will be undertow specific hook, of course, because yeah, it cannot be. With CDI, it will be a different story. With CDI, you could implement CDI extension, which registers whatever you like. But without CDI, in jax-rs, there is no scanning support for resources. Yeah. Okay, something happened in the chat, right? It's empty. Okay. So I would say, why not using, application servers that are small enough? I don't think you will gain anything just using undertow. You will probably, you will consume, I don't know, 10 megs of RAM less than with application servers, and the startup will be even slower, I guess. Okay, now Maurizio wrote a nice email, and my answer was, I don't answer any emails anymore. Please ask here. And his answer, he's a PHP dev for almost 5 years. What's interesting, there are lots of PHP developers at airhacks, and they learn Java EE at the workshops. And then I ask them, now, what is actually your impression right now? So you have a PHP experience, and now you learn Java EE and Java. What is your impression? And I never heard something negative. They say, okay, it is easier, it is nicer, and is well structured, and is very productive. which really surprised me. I thought that they would say, okay, this is not as lightweight, productive, or whatever. So it seems like PHP developers really like Java. And he considers to change to server-side Java, and he asked me some questions. So, do you think it's feasible for someone to change carriers from front-end to server-side Java? I mean, I think there's still lots to do in front-end, but I don't think PHP is front-end. So, I mean, switching from JavaScript and HTML5 and CSS to server-side Java, I don't think it is a great idea because both are very popular. So you can easily make some money with JavaScript and CSS. You don't have to switch to server-side Java for that. But I think if you know PHP, I would say it is easy to learn Java as well. So just switching from PHP to Java, I think is a good idea. And then if you are a front-end developer, I would just don't leave it completely. So I would just review the JavaScript and CSS3 and HTML5 story. So it's very appealing. So how is the job market? I think still great. So go to Stack Overflow. I always see millions of ads like the Java developers there's lack of Java developers. And for Java, mainly from the longer term. So longer term, who knows what happens? But as I said, JavaScript and TypeScript are very similar to Java. So if you learn Java, you will also know C#. And still, the longer we wait, the longer JavaScript will look like Java. So I think there is nothing lost. And my impression is that Ruby on Rails, that they are losing traction a lot. And what I also saw already, there are some Node.js projects I'm migrating back to Java, so which is also an interesting trend. And I think Java could become interesting again. It was never boring, but I think it could take off again because now Oracle is a little bit more open. We get Java 9, and something happens right now, so why not? What are the steps I could take to train and get experience in Java EE? Of course, if you like, you can watch my videos and or come to Munich would be the best. But if you are far away, so this is the Munich variant, come to I/O. This is an online variant, and just attend the first one, the Bootstrap or the Effective. So it really depends what you are interested in. So do this or this, and then if you like it, go for it. But I would say in your case, I would just, save money and try to first implement something with Java EE. So create a pet project from scratch and see how it goes. And then if you have questions, then attend the workshops. This would be my way. How frequent are updates in the Java API and innovation frequency? I mean, Java 8 and Java 9 is not that frequent. I would say every 3 years something happens. But I mean, I learn every day something new. It's not like it becomes boring. Probably the perception from the outside is like nothing happens, but the ecosystem is huge. Are changes to the API carefully planned? Very, very carefully planned, and many even say Java is too slow. And we have a formal process called JCP. You can even watch. Let's a second. It should be OpenJDK. Not Java.net. Java.net does not exist anymore, but it should be redirected, and not even works. And somewhere there are the JAPs. There's the process. Let's say JDK 9. So, and this is all the planning is open source, and you see all the features. They are very carefully planned. So I think it cannot get any better. So it's really carefully planned and voted by the community. When innovations come out, how do people and companies approach adopting them? I think it's getting faster and faster. So Java 8 was very fast adopted, and the same was true for Java 7. And I think there's no problem with Java 8. Why not? Because with technologies like Docker, it's very easy to use the recent Java version. Yeah, not only this, I mean, for developers, it's easy to keep up, I would say. The problem is you will have to migrate the app every 3 months, and this is crazy. And this is why people are moving away from Angular, for instance, because they don't like the migrations anymore. And I know several companies who stick with Angular 1.2 and 1.3, and there is no easy migration path to 1.5. And if you have no migration path to 1.5, it's really hard to migrate to 2, 3, and 4. And they're moving away completely from Angular. Okay, questions? No question here. What happens here? Listening to airhacks while running, no image, just sound, Pavel said in Twitter. This is something very new. So airhacks TV, what Pavel Scheidel would need is like augmented reality, goggles, or augmented reality, goggles, and what you and then he could look at all the questions and the action while running. So sorry, but your screen is cropped. I don't think so. So my screen is perfect. So I mean, all my screens are perfect. Okay. Now, der Atzmann asked me last time a question, and I think I misunderstood him. So interceptors intercept bean, and the intercept bean is stateless. This is not possible for a reason. So interceptors itself cannot be EGBees, and this is what it didn't meant. If you remove this at stateless, what happens then? The interceptor runs in the context of this EGB, of this intercepted EGB, and you can think about this. It is an EGB because the dependency injection works as an EGB. You get you get executed in the same transaction context from the same thread in the same security context. So there is actually should be no difference for you whether you are in the interceptor or in the EGB. So you cannot write this at stateless on the interceptor, but it shouldn't matter. It should work without this at stateless, and it will behave like a stateless EGB. And if you apply this interceptor on a singleton EGB, it will apply as a singleton EGB interceptor. And therefore, I think it's also not possible to specify at stateless interceptor, because what happens if you would, let's say, intercept with a stateless interceptor stateful EGB, then the interceptor would have different life cycle than the intercepted EGB, which would be a mess. Okay, clarified. Another two questions. Wesley Egberto asked me, CDI events and EGB, is there a way to make the event async? Async, yes, in Java 8. There is a way. Using asynchronous at observer method will work. Yeah, it works. You get sometimes warnings, but it works. Or I will have to call an asynchronous method from the observer method. So this is even better idea. So what you could do, use the observer as just as a listener, and inside the method in Java 7, what you can do right now is, of course, you can use the managed executor service and do whatever you like in an asynchronous way. And if you call an asynchronous method, you cannot do this with this. So there's an old post. Let's see whether I will find it. This, that, hopefully. EGB. This was the source code. What I explained here, why this doesn't work. Transaction. So yeah, this is the post. And what I showed here, there is a stateless, and there's transaction attribute not supported. And if I say this expects exception, expects the transaction, this expects exception. So what it means, because I'm using this, there is no proxy in between, so no one will start transactions for you. So also in your case, if you will put here at asynchronous on the method, this would be not an asynchronous call. You will have to move the method out to another control, or use injected managed executor service, of course. Okay, cool. Is there any way to make post or put request with an empty body? Yes, it works, but I think what you mean is you get an error from the jax-rs to O client. So from the client is hard, but from I think there's a way, but the application server will work with empty body. But I mean, this would be a little bit crazy, because post and put says you're creating or updating a resource, and in the body is the updated resource. But if you have post and put without the resource, I mean, what's the point? Yeah. But I remember once I had the problem. I wanted to invoke from jax-rs client the a post method, and I think I used Jersey, and I got an error. This is what you mean. But what you can also do, you can create the request with a builder, and I think then you should be able to create with a builder a post request without the body. I had no time to try it out, or I was too lazy to try it out, but just don't use, how it is called, client builder target.request. Use the builder with invoke, and I think with that it should be possible. So are stateful EGBees the gateway are useful only for some tricky corners like in, so let's see what this is. By Jeff. So the gateway pattern, also I didn't like to download the PDF now because we are streaming online, but my gateway pattern, what I meant by that is I created a perfect anti-facade, let's say, and now I remember, Adam Bean perfect anti-facade. Perfect. As you can see, 8 years old post. Crazy, right? So, and this is gateway. So it is stateful and the transaction is not supported. So what I did here, I injected an extended entity manager. And this is the killer feature of the gateway pattern. Extended entity manager means the entity manager lives as long as the other gateway lives, and nothing is clear, and it is just active the whole time. If I would associate the other gateway with HTTP session, we get one-to-one relation between the other gateway and the HTTP session, right? We can instance one-to-one. So what means I could pass the load here, load is an entity, to the GSF or any other web framework. And this framework could manipulate the load between the requests, so between the views. And what happens then is, at the end, I would just say save here, and the save is empty. What the save only does, it starts and commits, it begins and commits a new transaction. And now all dirty entities within the entity manager gets flushed to a database. So we are misusing the entity manager as change detector. So this is the whole deal with gateway pattern. When we need this, if you get crazy complicated, convoluted object graph, and this is like an expert system where in my case, there were engineers, it was really 8 years ago, they were able to modify the whole object graph, which was visible in a UI. And it would be a very expensive, not expensive from the performance point of view, but it would be very complicated to detect changes of the graph on and with the entity manager, we only waited until the engineer says save, and all the changes of the network were very efficiently written to a database. Okay. Okay. Freifeld Roy says, I see in your project that you are not always using Barcodes with REST. I guess what he means is in my open source project, I'm not always using Barcodes with REST, but because I think in commercial projects, I mostly use Barcodes, particularly if we have two microservices. But even in my blog system, so here, there is a bulkhead between the block and this monitoring system. There are actually two microservices. And if this even becomes too slow, you will see there will be no statistic like a minus sign. This means the bulkhead's opened. So I would say I try to always use bulkheads where it's reasonable. And reasonable means I'm not trusting the backend system, which is also a good idea, another system. And if the backend system becomes too slow, I'm just not invoking that. This is the point. Of course, if the backend system is an order system, I cannot just say, forget the order, just proceed, then I will block. So when should I use it? I mean, in microservices, think about this first, and then don't use it if don't use it if you have reasons for that. It's exactly the same if you in a house. A circuit breaker is like it's a circuit breaker. Is the name of the power. So it's the question when I should use it. So always, except you buy a new electric car and your circuit breaker is too weak, then you will have to bridge the circuit breaker until you charge the car. So this is similar analogy. So at least, so what you can always do, you have to specify timeouts, read and connect timeouts, and if the timeout kicks in, the question is what you do with that, and So in my opinion is what you probably mean is the following. So I always try to apply timeouts, but bulkhead is even more. What bulkhead will do is after 3 times it will open forever until someone closes the circuit, and someone could be an algorithm or an administrator, a person. So in my projects, I really rely on persons because what I don't believe is too much magic where the circuit breaker opens and then closes in after amount of time, because what I think it would be better is if the circuit opens, then it becomes visible in a dashboard, and the admin or someone responsible for the app just sees that one application became too slow and then closes the circuit. I think there is better than some automatic closure of the circuit, because if one application is too slow, the chances are high that in enterprise environment it is most of the time too slow. It's not like it is too slow just once in a month. Okay. Will CDI replace EGB in the future? I think it could replace EGBees right now. The problem is if you replace EGBees with CDI, you will have to apply more annotation. So therefore, because I like clean code, EGBees produce cleaner code, and therefore there is no reason to remove EGBees. In future, what can happen that we get profiles without EGBees? Why this? Because many developers don't like EGBees because of the name EGB, and they have no idea how lightweight and fast they are. And so therefore, I always use EGB. If they will die, I will write a script and replace it stateless with a set of CDI annotations, which will replace the functionality of EGBees, and so there's not a big deal. Which 3 Java 7 applications have a full profiles would you recommend for production? Payara is great, Tommy is great, and Whitefly is great. I'm using all of the application servers right now. I think Whitefly and Payara are the most used in my projects, and Tommy is also used because some of my clients have Tomcat and they migrated to Tommy. So I would say pick one and go for it. So if you have a Red Hat shop, use Whitefly. If you if you used Glassfish, use Payara, and if you know Tomcat, use Tommy. Could you please record a workshop how to create a cluster of Payara Glassfish with cache coordination enabled? No, because it would take a long time, and right now I have to record 25 episodes of, or at least 25 episodes of my web standards online workshop. So therefore, I'm a little bit lazy with that. And this would be really hard to show, I would say. So, I mean, I would have to create 2 Docker containers and see how it replicates. And this cache coordination is Eclipse link feature. So you could I would test it outside the application server first and then use it with the Glassfish. Okay, let's see what happens here. Airhacks is rocking, thank you. No questions here. In the chat, Twitter this time is more active than the chat. I guess, you know, that's the summer effect. So, 3 questions. In the past shows, I mentioned that GSF doesn't fit for pixel-perfect applications. What I meant by that is I already implied that you are using components like prime faces. And why I'm implying this? Because it's one of the killer features of GSF that you can use ready-to-use components. And then it is not for pixel-perfect applications. If you're not using components, you can do whatever you like. So it does not apply the arguments. And you can use pass-through element and attributes. So it will just work. And you can, of course, also use JS library. What you should be more careful, of course, the architecture will be not like Fat client, where the JavaScript client just talks via REST with the backend. Is more like the JSF provides data binding for the forms, and it renders the ready-to-use HTML with JavaScript. So don't you think that adding a front-end framework such as React or Angular makes the release cycle, delivery pipeline much more complex compared to JSF? Absolutely. I mean, if you use Angular, there was you would now we have the Angular CLI. Before this, new developers would struggle 1 week until Angular was run on a Windows machine. React with Webpack is easier to use right now, or easier to set up right now. But what I did this year several times, I implemented UI without any framework, and then there is no build process. So if you just follow standards, there is no build. What build process in JS means, you need transpilers because of TypeScript to ES6 transpilation. But if you just use standards, there will be no transpilers. And ES6, this is the JavaScript like Java, is already supported in most of the browsers without any transpilation. Of course, if you have to address all the browsers, then you will have to use the transpilers, but there you will only need a subset of them. And this would be not as problematic as using Angular, because Angular also precompiles the templates and can do a lot of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Node.js, Grunt, and Bower. And what I just used is a simple NPM script, to package that, so there was no issue. How do you deal with the build of such front-end application, a single war or separate after the backend and front-end? So I built like, one of the project was like an admin panel with several satellites. And in this particular case, everything was packaged in a war because I delivered as a product, almost product to my clients. And they just put it to the application so when it worked out of the box. So this was a specific case. It was like a additional monitoring system. And the front end was built with HTML5 or HTML5 standard. So HTML5, I don't like the name, is actually wrong. So HTML5 plus, the usual suspects, CSS3, JavaScript, and so forth. So in commercial projects, we always had 2. So we had one war for the backend and one zip for the front end. And why zip? It was Nginx or Apache. Why that? Because from the experience, I can tell you that usually in enterprise projects, the UI changes in a faster pace than the backend. In one point of time, the backend is stable, and you get still changes in the UI. And this is really nice to be able to, to deliver a new version of the UI without affecting the backend. Okay. You suggested that EGBees is not a part of Java. Yeah, I suggested to use EGBees. What AL meant, this is what I didn't got. He has just Java SE7 projects, so not EE, is SE, and he would like to use jax-rs 2.0 client. So how to deal with that? So why I suggested EGBees? Because how EGBees behave is, there is an instance for each thread, and there is impossible to have 2 threads which are accessing the same instance. If for instance, in jax-rs, if you will start in a thread always a new jax-rs client, then you are safe. So the problem is it is slow. I mean, it it is fast, but you can measure, you know, the difference. So if you cache the client or cache even the target, it is faster than without. So if you have many short-lived connections, you can affect you. But if you're starting multiple connections with a longer lived, it shouldn't affect the performance. So what you can do, you could create, you know, a class where in constructor of the class you're creating the jax-rs client and the target and web target, and there you have one method like perform, and this method is executed by the managed executor service. And if you create the instance for each thread, it will behave like an EGB. So Huxendupsel, nice name. This is a nicer name. I think that the Huxendupsel has the I think he won the award of the best name ever, I think, so far. So, and he asked me, he's developing a monolithic application, and he would like to break out the functionalities into microservices step by step. So the first question is, I would ask you why. So are you not happy with that, and why you would like to do this? It should be a clear answer. If there's no answer, keep the monolith going. So and now he asked me, let's say we have two JEE applications deployed on the same Java application server. This is what I would never do. So if you already decided to use microservices, then you should have two wars on two application servers. So what's the point to have two microservices in one application server? If you have two wars in one application server, you lose all the benefits. They're harder to monitor, harder to scale. You know, if one fails, you will have to, or if one kills the server is not available for the other one. And if you redeploy the first service, the whole application server can become inconsistent. It is harder to monitor the traffic. You cannot associate as much memory. So there are just, you know, drawbacks. So regarding REST and B2B communication, what is the best opportunity to restrict calls from outside the application context to the monolith? Monolith calls a service. So what I think you will have to do in microservices is to have a token, and there is a JWT token, and assign the token to the service, and the other can decode the token. So if you are in one application server, you can pass by reference the token. So if you have multiple microservices, you will need a authentication service. And what I suggest to use is Keycloak, or one is Keycloak and the other one was OpenAM. So this is actually in every show I mentioned both. Keycloak is Whitefly, one of the JBoss projects, Keycloak, and the other one is OpenAM from SearchRock. Exactly. So, okay, now, Dempile asked me, and I will just reload, not that there is another question. No, this is the last one. 5 hours ago. Do you think an ERP's enterprise resource planning should be developed or customized from existing ones like Odoo, for example? So it depends on your domain expertise. So if you are the absolute expert in ERP and you have some productive platform like Java, I think if you really know, if you know field the business cases, if you are the ERP expert, I think you could develop it from scratch. Not as a product or you know, rather than a specific solution to your client. But if you are not so sure about, you know, the business logic, and you have not a great knowledge and great experience with the domain of ERP, I would rather customize one or use one. So Odoo looks promising. Another one which was extremely popular was Sugar CRM. Sugar CRM, and the Sugar CRM was extremely popular a few years ago. So this is also what you could do. I think it's implemented with PHP. Okay. In case of choosing development, what architecture we should choose, monolithic or microservices? So I always would start with monolith. Actually, last week I was on a client mission, and they had microservices, and what we did is we just merged them together, and I say, okay, because there was no reason for the microservices, and what we did, we merged them together. It's like, okay, now observe the code, and if you have really get a reason, like you are able to extract parts of business logic which is isolated, then do this, then extract on microservice with lots of benefits. But just creating microservice without a reason is it can only fail. Okay, something happens here. So for unknown reasons, it loads, but I don't think see anything. So there are no questions here, and there are actually no questions in the Twitter. I would say we covered a lot of ground. There's almost 1 hour, so it always takes an hour regardless how many questions we have. And thank you for watching. I think the next one is after Java 1. So I will try to record a short show, as always, about Java 1, what happens there. And so I will cover a little bit Java 1. And yeah, see you in worst case at Munich Airport. I think the October workshops are around the corner. Web standards, most important one, React, and if you need, would like to see a little bit of over-engineering, please attend the Angular workshop. It's always was really funny. There are some attendees who attend all the 3 workshops, in the past, and if I, after showing them web standards, React, and Angular, they couldn't believe, how complicated Angular actually looks like and is. And yeah, it's always a funny reaction. Okay, so thank you for watching and see you in October. Bye. Oh, there's one question. Besides Keycloak and OpenM, you should mention Censored as well. I think, what is Censored? Okay, token authentication, probably. I thought about this, but there's also setup crazy. So if I will have, setup, Hello World setup, I would record a screencast. So I think Manuel put here a link, so which got censored, but yeah. Okay, thank you for watching and bye.